Very good. Here we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing great. I am here with Jason from Qortal, and just super excited. I learned about him through a couple of mentors of mine. Well, not only about him, but about the project that we're going to be talking about here tonight. Just the really cool applications that that many of us have concerns about where tech and internet and just speech and all that is headed, and really Qortal, in my opinion, is on the forefront of really creating a platform and more, in which we'll go into about how we can really beat them at their own game, if you will, and just really create our own network that is, unhackable, if you will, and other things as we talk about that more. We'll also talk about its relationship to cryptocurrency and blockchain, and how really this could be a great investment opportunity as well. So if you're watching this and this is, speaking right up your alley, please do us a favor and like and share this. So the more people that are aware of this and watch it, whether it's live or after the fact, it's just going to help spread this message like wildfire. So thanks for being on tonight, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I am always up to talk about Qortal because, this is something I've been doing for the last 8+ years, planning and developing this thing with a bunch of really smart people on my side. And it's, I take any and all opportunities to explain Qortal to anybody who will listen. So absolutely. Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me on.
So why don't we kind of start with a little bit of just like how maybe, if you will, the conception or the inception of Qortal, about kind of where you were at that you were like, you know what, this is what we need right now, and kind of take us up to the present day.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in the crypto space for a very long time. I learned about Bitcoin in 2013, started becoming a miner, learned how all the back end type stuff. I started actually leading a cryptocurrency team. Essentially, I built a team for a platform that was launched in the same exact fashion, that was completely decentralized, had no known developers or whatever. So I built a team for it and started leading that project. And I learned a ton throughout that process, right? And got a bunch of really smart developers who taught me a ton of other concepts. And we just started bouncing ideas off of each other and going, there are no other platforms in the crypto space or anywhere that really take and maximize the use of blockchain technology. What we see right now is mostly cryptocurrencies, right? Which cryptocurrencies use blockchain technology to allow for a distributed ledger that everybody can see, and do a bunch of other things we won't go into. But it's essentially just used as a currency to transmit value from one person to another, right? Securely, totally, and without banks. Yeah. So I would like to see a platform that takes that technology and expands it to be able to use anything on the internet, right? Store pictures and websites and host things for other people to see, like blogs, stuff like that, to be able to do all types of communication like what we're doing here. We already have in Qortal a platform called QChat, which is a plugin to the UI, and that allows for instant real-time text-based encrypted communications with no central server. So what we see with things like Telegram, right? Is that, yes, it's encrypted, but it's also on a centralized server owned by a company. And if that's the case, then you can never fully trust that what they say they're doing, they really are doing, unless their backend is also open source, right? So, and even if it is, they can also add things that we don't see on that open source code into their own code and monitor things or record things or whatever, right? So if we eliminate that server, then we get rid of that.
So theoretically, the FBI or the NSA or whoever could go to Telegram with a big subpoena, and I'm not a legal guy, but and be like, hey, we want every single piece of data that you have. And Telegram would probably be, as an example, be hard pressed to say, nope, sorry, we're not going to do that.
Because they are a company and they follow all the regulations and make sure that they're within laws and so forth, they would have that pressure. Whether they actually gave in or not is another thing. And the same thing with something like Proton Mail, right? Where we heard recently that the authorities were actually subpoenaed to pull information and give it. And a lot of these places say that they don't even have the information that they then end up giving away. So if you don't have these logs and information, then how are you able to give it away? And we've seen this happen in multiple cases with different encrypted applications, right? So the problem is not the encryption. The problem is that there's a centralized entity that is in the middle of it.
There's a CEO, there's a board, there's budgets, right? There's
this company, it can be subpoenaed. It can be attacked by other aspects of things too, hackers and things like that, right? So that is a main issue that blockchain technology solves.
Right.
So we take our blockchain, we allow it to do a lot more than just transmit money basically from one person to another, and we make it allow it to do web hosting, communications, and everything that you end up doing on your computer on a regular basis can ultimately end up being redone in this fashion without that centralized entity in the middle of anything. So everything takes place directly from one person to another, just like the transactions on Bitcoin. If you're using Bitcoin and not using a centralized exchange, which is another problem that we have solved in Qortal 2. So all of the centralized entities and all of the things in the middle, the middlemen, we have eliminated the need for them with Qortal. So you can do everything that you can do on your traditional internet connection on your computer on the Qortal blockchain eventually. That is what our plan is to essentially have a separate network with just the nodes on that network, which is anybody who joins, right? Anybody who runs the software on any device, those people can use this service, which is open and free to all, completely open source and launched in a completely fair fashion, and use that instead of all of these centralized things that require you to pay for them and that could potentially take your data and do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, let's talk about that in terms of like fair and really just kind of like the actual maybe mechanics or economics, because you know, crypto currencies, whether it be, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, I mean, you name the top, whatever, 10 or 20 of them. I mean, a lot of people have heard of those now, even just beyond Bitcoin. But can you walk through like how a lot of those start from a financial perspective for, you know, the quote unquote founders or the leaders of that, and then you know, kind of walk through how Qortal is really completely prevented such type situation of ever happening, you know, so it really protects, you know, the whole community, if you will. But can you walk through that? Because I don't think a lot of people, including myself, that much understand how essentially they create these things out of thin air, relatively speaking, right? And then
they do, yeah.
Then next thing you know, you have these prices. So can you walk through how like a traditional cryptocurrency would start?
So in the case of Bitcoin and any coin that I consider fairly launched, right? The chain starts at block 0, and there are 0 coins available at that point. The coins become mined, or in the case of Qortal, minted and get created into existence in a fair fashion by anyone joining and mining or minting, right? If you can do that and you launch your chain that way, and it starts like basically grassroots, and the people who join are the ones who find out about it, and then it just keeps growing from there, that is what you consider a fair launch in the crypto space. However, what we have seen is basically taking and doing almost the exact same thing that you do with a company when it's going public. Right. Initial share offering, I think they call it, the same thing they've been doing with the crypto space. So a company comes along and says that they're going to launch this token. And a lot of the time, the token doesn't even have its own blockchain behind it. It does not have any real technology. All it is an idea that they've written out and a token that runs on something like the Ethereum blockchain or another blockchain that allows you to run tokens or assets on that chain. So this company comes along, they create these tokens. Because they have to create them on another chain, they have to decide how many need to exist in the beginning. So they start with control over these tokens. Then from there, what they do is an ICO, which allows them to then sell these tokens to whoever buys them, right? Then they start at whatever price that ICO decided the coin will start at. In a market like Qortal, where it was mined or minted from block 0, there was no coins when the first block happened. That's when the first coins were minted and created, right? So there's no ownership of a massive amount of coins sitting there that the developers and so forth get for whatever reason, and that they sell out to people and take that money that they're getting in return. So like, it's a totally centralized concept that cannot apply to a fairly launched blockchain.
Well, and so in case in point, right? So Jason did not own 95% of the Qortal from the beginning, and therefore could just then sell from day one, sell to thousands of people, make a boatload of money basically out of nothing, right? Whereas that's where, as far as I know, the majority of the projects start, these days. And really what I see is it becomes who can really create the coolest looking like graph, right? Or the most funny name, right?
Fanciest website,
right? And essentially like almost more of a marketing plan versus like, and in many cases like zero tech whatsoever behind it. And maybe some of them have good intentions where they're like, oh, well, we're going to take all this money and then we're going to build what we say we were going to build. But obviously in lots of cases that has not happened.
People don't realize that developing something like a traditional thing that doesn't talk to a blockchain is completely different than developing blockchain technology. And that is why with the team that I have created and that has continued to grow, because it's a community-based thing, no matter what, yes, there's a team, there's a development team, but it's a community elected development team. And a few of them have been with me for multiple years. These people all have a lot of experience in developing blockchains, not just developing, right? There's a big difference. So a lot of these companies will get in with the greatest intentions. Sure, they'll come in, they'll get these $25 million and they'll be like, oh, we're set, let's do it. They get these academic developers and they think they're amazing, and they get nowhere because they run into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock because they've not had any experience developing blockchains.
Right.
So yeah, and a lot of them are just scams to begin with, right? So there's a big wide range here, but a fairly launched coin is launched from block zero with no coins on the chain. The coins are created by the users as they mint the chain forward, and the rewards are given. So right now we have just under 3 million, I think, total court in existence. And with the current price puts the market cap at something absurd at less than $2 million or something like that. And we right now have more functionality than basically every other blockchain that has ever existed. With some functionality that we have that's unique to Qortal, and our back end that is completely unique. So the potential here is essentially like getting Bitcoin back when it was 10 cents.
Right.
So there's a really large potential.
We'll talk about in a second, but I think, one thing that would be helpful for me to understand as well, and this is a very basic question, but I think a lot of people have this question, or they're almost sometimes afraid to ask it because they don't want to sound like a dummy. But so when we say like mining, or in the case of Qortal minting, like what does that actually mean? Because when I first heard like Bitcoin mining, I'm like, is this a new thing that people just developed that I need to go like look in the mountains for? Like I literally did not it didn't make sense to me, right? So could you just kind of explain like what, if you're a Qortal minter, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but like what does that actually mean? Is that basically contributing your computing energy power that you have in your possession to the network? How do you explain that?
No, in the case of Qortal, you're not actually sharing resources or anything like that. And the fact is that minting in Qortal does not take a lot of resources either. So for example, on my laptop, it's a couple years old. It's not the best laptop ever. It's a decent one, right? I can run Qortal minting as I'm playing a full screen video game, and it runs just fine. Like both things run just fine hand in hand, right? Yeah. So it's not like mining. So what mining is it's a proof of work algorithm, which requires the computer to be running at 100% all the time, crunching numbers, right? You're trying to find the highest number by putting two other numbers together. If you win, you get it. If you don't, you just keep trying, right? So it takes 100% of your CPU all day long, no matter what you run it on. So the problem there is that it leads to people building devices specifically for that, and only the people who have a lot of money can then participate in the mining and get any sort of reward that makes any sense, right? So what Qortal has done is removed the money equals power and taken it so that you cannot gain influence, you cannot earn more by doing anything other than simply proving yourself a legitimate minter for a longer period of time. So all you have to do is run your node, essentially. Keep your node running, keep it online, which keeps it synchronized with the rest of the chain, and you have successfully set up a minter. It's really that simple. The only other thing is you have to assign a key, which you create yourself.
Right.
But first you have to get one from a sponsor, right? So we have to limit the ability for people to create these accounts so that we can do our best to ensure that each person has only one, right? So that
I remember it's funny because a couple of weeks ago or whatever, I had asked you, I'm like, well, help me like build a Qortal farm, in a sense of like, if I can just buy like 30 computers, like help me get this thing up and running. And you're like, well, no, like that's not how it works. And I think that, is a huge thing, because what it means is that unlike other projects, I mean, it guarantees, really, in my mind, purity and like it for becoming uncorrupt. So for example, if we're talking about censorship, free speech, perhaps a platform for whistleblowers to be able to safely whistleblow, right, and without traceable or whatever you want to call that. There couldn't be like, if this becomes this huge thing, which it will be, but like there couldn't just be like, okay, well, Facebook all of a sudden would try to come in and like somehow they could take over Qortal by just buying and making it more, doing more than what everybody else could combine, because they would have the resources to do that if it was like even a Bitcoin type scenario, right, where it's like he or she who has the most farms, if you will, right, can essentially become the king, right?
In fact, it's a very direct thing in some cases, in things called hard forks for Bitcoin. The miners, and I think soft forks, they do this too, but the miners actually mine toward one decision or another.
Sure.
So they literally decide the future of the platform, which is good because it's decentralized, right? But if it's money equals power, then the people with more money can simply buy more and have more machines running and take majority control. Yes, it's people will always argue with me about how likely that is to happen.
Right, sure.
However, that's beside the point.
Well, the way I look at that is, I mean, if that capability exists, that's and saying that's decentralized, that's really no different than saying our government is decentralized, right? Because you have enough people that are empowered that say, oh, well, I'm making the decisions based on the benefit of my people, right? But ultimately they can become very self-serving, and that ultimately that power can become corrupted, because all it would take
anything that is money related, that is owned by money or driven by money, can be controlled by money, and that's what people will go after, right? So that tie needed to be broken in order for the system to function the way that it was supposed to be. And this is based on what Satoshi originally wanted to create with Bitcoin, right? So we're not actually creating some completely crazy new concept here. We're following what Satoshi wanted to create, but was unsuccessful in doing so because of the way that the POW mining works.
Yeah.
And not to interrupt, sorry, I do that.
No, you're good. So if you're watching and this sounds good, please like and share this. But also, if you have questions, we're going to be answering those in a little bit. And no question is, off topic, if you will, too. So in terms of like, use case. So when I just, for the people that I know personally, whether friends, family, people on social media, whatever, what a huge chunk of us are, we're fed up with. I mean, I've already had, for example, one Facebook account completely deleted, and there was no recovery possible for, posting things that were true, but not maybe politically correct, if you will, in the eyes of the beholder, right? So what do you see as far as like, what are some really like tangible things that this is going to allow for people that really crave the space to be able to communicate with each other with openly without the risk of that, because there's so many groups that are sort of right, even Trump announced last week that he was going to be creating this platform that was going to be rivaling of Facebook, and maybe it will be a lot more of a free, but ultimately, right, it's going to be a SPAC, right? It's going to be a group, right? And it's going to be someone with political and financial interest that's going to be at the head of the seat of that. Like them or love them, that's what it is. So could you kind of walk through like what you see developing over the next couple of months or years that'll be really tangible for people like ourselves to be able to really, I mean, there's already, I know, like a community and all that, but
Right.
how do you see this really becoming like live, I guess, if you will?
So because we do not have any reliance on any centralized entity, right? So that eliminates so many concerns, right? So there's no one entity, even like the hosting providers, say like AWS, they can't even do anything to Qortal. There's literally no way to stop Qortal from being able to function other than literally killing the entire internet or killing all power to the country or to the world at the same time. Right? Because if you have one node running, well, actually with Qortal, you need two nodes. If you have two nodes running in Qortal, the network will continue. So there is nothing you can do about that because there's nothing in between. You're doing person-to-person communications, person-to-person transactions, secured with a blockchain, which, as we know, the ledger is completely unhackable. None of these Bitcoin hacks that you see have ever been actually hacks on Bitcoin. They were all hacks of centralized services that held Bitcoin keys. And so they say, oh, Bitcoin was hacked. No, the Bitcoin was stolen from a centralized service provider. So once again, another example of why these providers and things are just completely unnecessary. So if we can do everything that Facebook can do now without the need for that centralized ownership, that's what we're going for. So within the next couple months, we just got to version 2.0, which made a massive difference on how easy it is to set up. There were a bunch of little bugs and things that we had to fix because, you know, this is a brand new platform. This is written from scratch. This is something no one has ever done before, not exactly like this. So we had to work through some things, right? Now that we're at version 2.0, we are very stable. The network is very stable, very easy to set up. So everyone who has a node on their computer, when we get to the next, between versions 2.1 and 3.0, we will have data storage of version 3.0. We are looking to hit that by the end of this year. When we get to that point.
So data storage, sorry, I had to interrupt, but like, so you mean like I could store whatever, my photos, I could store, can you just kind of,
so, okay, so there, when you're talking about data storage, there are multiple different types. And in Qortal, we talk about two main types of data storage, right? Public data and private data. Now, if you're talking about your pictures, you're talking about a private data storage like a cloud, right? And yes, we will have that as well. The first iteration of data storage on Qortal is focused on doing things for public data so that people can have a blog or a website. And we would like to include a default blog, which basically you can think of that as the same thing as what you have on your Facebook page, your profile, right? That you can post comments on and that people can post comments on. That's a blog, right? I don't care what we call it. It's Facebook is a blog, basically. So when we initially launched this, the plan is to have a default blog where you can just fill out your profile picture and you can fill out information there and you can make posts that people can see with no centralized providers. So you're just making these posts on your own computer, talking only to your own computer, which is secured and using the blockchain, and it's good to go, right? So we want to have that type of data storage available by the end of the year. So websites, blogs, and massive improvements to Q Chat, because now we will be able to do things like voice and video streaming and other things that we cannot do now with just the blockchain itself without the data storage functionality.
So next time we do an interview, it could potentially be through.
It may well be using an application built on top of Qortal. So Qortal is literally an infrastructure platform. It's literally a separate network aside from the internet that communicates over the internet for the moment. We're going to eliminate that in the future too. But it's a separate infrastructure platform that will allow you to do everything that the traditional internet can do in a different way, but accomplishing the same end results, and completely decentralized, completely person to person. Nobody in between your communications, nobody in between the post and who's reading it, right? So it's just a dramatically improved way to make everything on the internet function. And this is exactly how the internet was supposed to be. Everything in the beginning was written to be this way, but it got co-opted by massive corporations again,
Of course,
that
yeah.
started to try to own everything. And domains are that same exact way. They own them. You just rent them from them for a period of time, and you continually pay if you want to continue to have
Right.
that name. We've removed that as well. Now you
Wow.
register a name, it gets registered in the system. It comes out of thin air. It
Right.
doesn't exist until you create it. Once you create it, you own it.
Yeah.
Once you own it, you can use it as a username. You can use it as a domain name. It's just a better infrastructure platform.
Yeah.
I know this is like a lot of information for people.
No,
right?
no. But I mean, this is what, you know, we, especially over the last 2 years, have really, I think a massive chunk of us have felt this firsthand, directly, really the actual, you know, oppression really of what not essentially owning, right? Like, you don't own your Facebook page and profile. If I did, I wouldn't have gotten mine deleted, right? You know, with all my freaking pictures of when I was in like high school or, you know, undergrad and all these things, right? So, like that to me, like, it has to be the future, right? Or otherwise, there's going to be no stopping just the railroad, if you will, of you know, owning our data, right? Like we don't own it, right? We don't own anything more. I mean, like, that's why when you go on Facebook now and all these things, like, they know all these things about you because you don't own their data. They're tracking with all of this stuff. And what you're saying is that this is literally you are the only one that owns it, and nobody can access any of that because of the actual, you know, we'll just call it the wall, if you will, around it.
It's secured with blockchain
Right.
and cryptography talking to that blockchain to allow you to make transactions happen in the same way that Bitcoin transactions are made. And it just secures things, right? So it's using the same concepts,
or it's the kind of thing where you know, for anybody with election, right, uncertainty, like had elections been done on the Qortal network, right, like there would have been zero chance.
You can't miscount it for one, and your influence isn't based on money for another. So the people's vote is literally the people's vote. You don't have to elect some official to vote for you. You literally make your own votes as your own individual sovereign person in this system that is able to mint coins and earn a living from that, or sell their services from within the network, or whatever you can dream is also possible, right? Like, this platform is literally meant to be able to do everything that you're used to being able to do. So if you can think of it, it can be built, right?
So am I understanding it correctly then? There also could be like mobile applications, in a sense that it could theoretically even replace like a phone, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've started a hardware company, and we've released the first device, which is the Cortector. It's a palm-sized full computer that's a standalone computer that runs and mints for you. It takes 5 watts of power, as much as a phone charger, right? That was the first concept of a device, but we do plan to eventually build phones, absolutely. But we can already right now, with the release of 2.0, we have a node type now that only takes 700 megabytes of storage space. So that node type could be run on a mobile device, and that would allow all of the functionality that Qortal has, including minting and trading and communications, and soon enough data storage. All of that could be possible on a mobile device. So yes, it's literally a new infrastructure platform that is going to be replacing nearly everything that we currently use, with something that is not co-opted, not owned, not able to be manipulated. If you put data on Qortal's data network, you are the only person who can modify it, because the hash that's stored on the chain is owned by you. So if you modify it, then the hash changes. If you don't, then it's invalid. So yeah, it's literally in your own control. You're communicating only with your own computer. You're not dealing with a server that's then gathering further information on you. It's a completely different way of accomplishing the same things that we all love to do on the internet.
So let's talk a little bit about I guess just like kind of the financial side or the economics of Qort, right? Which is the would you call it the token of Qortal?
The coin. It's a native coin. Okay. A token implies that it's another token on top of another blockchain. A coin is usually the main native coin of a platform. So
yep. So So as it, I'm just actually going on the Explorer right now, just so I give actual real-time data here on October 25th. So as it stands right now, each quart is priced at 64 cents. Okay. And the market cap is about 1.8 million, dollars. So I'll just kind of speak, so just for for perspective's sake, right? And actually, let me just pull this up, right now, so I give also real-time data. So I think, what's Bitcoin's market cap right now? I think it's $1 trillion something, right? Let's see here. Yeah, 1.2 trillion for Bitcoin.
A more adequate comparison would probably be Ethereum.
Yeah, Ethereum is 500 billion.
Yeah, they claim to do similar things that we are claiming, right? But they do not accomplish them in the fashion that actually allows them to be completely decentralized. A lot of the things that they do require some form of centralization. So it's a bunch of hype, honestly.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Comparison to them makes a lot more sense. But even if we hit a 10th of their value, when we already have a whole hell of a lot more functionality, and we will by the end of the year have more than they could ever dream of with the application and data layer, it's crazy. Like,
well, I think
potential for increase is insane.
For people that have experience in the crypto investing world, if you will, I mean, when I say 1.8 million market cap, sorry, I mean that is like, I mean, if you threw this on KuCoin today, I mean, there would be tens of millions of dollars that would pour into it just because it was such a small market cap that people know they could pump it up and run it, right? So, but that's the whole thing we were talking about, we're not, that's not at the heart and not even within the functionality of what Qort is anyway. So that's where this is all, and this is really why it speaks to me in multiple ways, but even as a chiropractor, I mean, really, like, we bang the drum, if you will, every single day that, in our clinics, like, grassroots, right? Person to person, right? And really like that relationship that really happens. And this is how I see what, again, the purity of what this kind of offers. But we were talking about this offline, about the Bitcoin pizza. So some of you may know the story, but this is always like, man, if this was me, I don't even know what I would do with my life. But there's a funny story. So 11 years ago, there's a guy named Laszlo, and he, this was back when Bitcoin was worth probably pennies a piece. So he had 10,000 Bitcoin and he was really hungry. And so he bought two Papa John. He took his 10,000 Bitcoin, converted it to USD, and bought two Papa John's pizzas with those Bitcoins. This is back 11 years ago. If he had held on to those Bitcoin, what do we say the value would be? 6 billion?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So he spent $6 billion on two pizzas, back in the day. So we were just kind of like joking about, I mean, really the possibility of,
it would be 631 million. So we were off by a decimal point or two there. But $631 million for a pizza. Yeah. So we're at that stage now.
That's right. Yeah.
With Qortal, the price of Qort, and Bitcoin is just a coin. Remember that. All it does is transact value. That's all the Bitcoin chain does. Sure, other people have tried to make it do other things, right? But it's not built for that. It's built to do is be a currency, and it does a great job of that. It doesn't require a bank, so there are a lot of good things about Bitcoin, right? And people always try to, when I'm starting saying things like, oh, there are things that I don't like about Bitcoin, people are always like, oh no, they're not that bad. I'm like, well, yeah, I know, but yeah, it's well. The thing is that we wanted to do it all in a completely homegrown, completely person-to-person fashion. Exactly what you were saying, totally.
So, and I think what we were talking about, just again in terms of the economics, how we were just really talking about how, I mean, investing it, especially right now, I mean, but really ongoing, but especially right now, what you're really doing is you're investing in the future that you want to create, right? Like if this is the kind of thing that you want to create, when people buy, Qort, they're really helping, they're directly funding, right, the growth of the project and the ability, and really, I mean, this is going to happen one way or the other, but what they're really funding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at least I would say the speed of how quickly this happens, right? And then of course, how the speed of how it can expand, right? Because I mean, I know this, I mean, in talking to you a little bit, like people could chop off both of your arms and you would still figure out a way to continue to develop Qortal, you know, no matter what, you'd use your tongue or whatever, right? So so am I correct in that? And then on top of that, you know, you have a opportunity for that investment to grow and bear further fruit for yourself and your family and to be able to use that. So
right. So because Qortal has no centralized components and doesn't even require a centralized exchange in order to trade, you need to get into Litecoin or Dogecoin from a centralized exchange with your fiat, get into one of those two coins. Then you send those coins to your wallet inside of Qortal. Once you've done that, there is no more touching anything centralized that's required, right? And because of that, and we still have tradability between those two chains, and we're adding multiple other coins supported to be able to trade between them as well, right? So you're never stuck in court. That's the main thing, right? Because we have native and cross-blockchain trading, even if you're like down the line, oh no, I shouldn't have done this or whatever, you're never stuck. There's no centralized entity that could fail. There's no way possible for you to not be able to trade back, right? So that's a big thing for me, especially because in the past, I've invested in multiple different altcoins and many of them have gone dead because centralized exchanges no longer support them, delist them, whatever reason, right? And then that coin is now dead because they have no trade location, which is relying on a centralized entity. So that's a massive thing, right? So just to understand that is a good thing. But yes, we are at the point now where an investment into Qort would not only benefit the person investing by, you know, hundreds of thousands of percentage potentially, like the growth potential is just insane, right? Like if you're looking at it and all the value that the network provides, even if you just look at it as, okay, we can send money anywhere in the world within 1 minute confirmed, right? Now that's great, right? That's a huge thing for money transfer agencies, whatever, right? Like it's massive. Just that one thing alone is what Bitcoin does. And the value of Bitcoin is in the trillions of the market cap, right? So if you just take a fraction of that and say, if our market cap was at a fraction of Ethereum's, which is 500, if we had 50 billion of that in market cap, look at the potential value of each coin in the thousands of dollars per coin. And that's just a fraction of a platform that's not even anywhere near as good as what Qortal is already. And what it will be by the end of the year will blow a lot of people's minds. Like this platform will go with or without anybody watching this buying in, right? But it's the people who get in sooner are always the ones who have more potential for the increase in value. And also this does directly fund the development, since the only thing that we get is from minting, just like everyone else, right? So the value of that coin increasing allows us to sell our minted coins at a higher price, which then allows me to pay the developers and get them full time. Right now, most of them are working in their extra time, still having to work day jobs. And if we could make them actually working full time, the development pace would quadruple.
And for me, I mean, you know, and obviously we want to change that as quickly as possible. But for me, it really tells me that the testament of very smart people that believe in the project, right, that are willing to burn the midnight oil, whatever you want to say, right, you know, with this for probably not as much as they make, even close to like they make in their day jobs, or potentially
most of them aren't even making anything from it right now. They're not even selling their coins. They're just holding on to them
because they don't want, they know that they don't want to be the Qortal pizza guy down the road. So just I'm going to give like just a kind of a my experience with it real quick, and then we'll kind of give people some action steps, and we'll answer. I got a couple questions here. So in terms of, you know, getting involved in Qort, you know, financially. So essentially, right, and correct me at any of these steps along the way that if I don't say it clearly, you would go on some place like Coinbase, you would buy Litecoin,
Litecoin.
at whatever amount of money you'd want to do, whether it could be $10, right, which would buy you.
So
whatever.
we could say you can buy any supported coin, which right now is Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin, but we're only trading with Litecoin and Dogecoin. So you're going to want to pick Litecoin because that's the most established network
and goes back and forth
market. Right. So that's the one that has the most volume right now. So Litecoin's the best option.
Yeah. So they could say,
clarify.
Thank you. Buy $10, $50, $100, $5,000, whatever of Litecoin on Coinbase. They would get set up with Qortal, which we'll talk about that in a second. They would transfer that into their Qort wallet, right? And then they could go in the marketplace and then buy. So really, it's we're talking maybe 5 clicks or something like that, right?
It's simple process.
Yeah. And then
especially if they're already set up on Coinbase. If they're not, then there's their centralized verification processes that you have to go through, which you don't have to do in Qortal, because guess what? You're not dealing with any company. You're not dealing with any nonsense where you have to sign waivers or give your information to them. You can trade directly with other people in the Qortal community without any need for any of that. In the same type of market, done completely cross-chain. So
and then the cool part too, right? I mean, as you prove your I don't know, let's just say commitment to the community, the network, right? Well, then people would have the opportunity then to for me, I mean, I've been in it for almost a year now, or not quite, but coming up on that, where I now mint from my, same as you, I shut it off while we were going on here just because I didn't want to create a stuttery, Wi-Fi.
It shouldn't have.
But I know, but my house is kind of funny with that. But so I just I'll be at the office adjusting patients, and every now and then I'll come back and refresh. I'm oh great, there's another 0.2 of a quart or whatever, and that. And so it seems kind of small and funny right now as it is, but 0.1 Ethereum right now is worth $410, right? So there's just so it seems only funny in context for what it's worth.
As you level up, you get a bigger percentage of the rewards pool, and so and it only pays those who are actively contributing. Right. So if you have your node off, you're not getting anything at that time, and those rewards are going to the people who are. Right. So it's it's a completely fair system, as fair as it could potentially be, and we are going to continue to make changes and just make it as good as we could possibly make it, right? And right now we have a system that's better than any other cryptocurrency, in my opinion. I'm pretty biased working on this for 8+ years.
For sure,
but,
it's okay.
It was done for a reason.
It's okay to be biased, because especially when it's backed up with truth. But so what if someone wanted to get involved, so what would be and I'll put links or whatever, but kind of walk through what are the easiest action steps to kind of get their feet wet.
Right. So to get involved in anything that's decentralized, you need to install what's called a node, right? A node is literally just the core software that runs the blockchain and allows communication with the UI, which is another set of software. So we have 2 software components that you need to install. You can install this on a laptop, a desktop, anything that you want. And right now we do not have mobile support. I've made it work on my own, but that requires a little bit of effort right now. We will have mobile applications and stuff that will be built. But right now, any desktop type machine, laptop, any operating system, Linux, Mac, Windows, they all work. And you install your node, which is installing your core software, then installing your UI. And right now, the version 2.0 automatically downloads a copy of the chain that's not too far behind. So it gets you synchronized much more quickly. In a decentralized system, you have to have a copy of the blockchain, right? You are actually communicating only with your own computer, right? So you need to have that software set up in order to make this work. So yes, there's a little bit of effort required to get it set up. But once it's set up the first time, the core automatically updates. We will have automatic updates on the UI working again here really soon. And that's done via a vote and a transaction on chain, which is really, really cool. And no other blockchain can do that either. So a lot of these, you have to continually update the software. And if you don't pay attention for a few months and then you come back, you're so far behind, you don't even know what to do anymore. And you just you have to restart. right? So with this, we have eliminated that and made it as simple as possible, just like centralized software, to make it so that once you've installed it once, in theory, it should continue to keep itself up to date as long as you keep it running, right?
Yep.
So yeah, you install the software, you create your node, you create your accounts. All of this is done on your own computer only, not communicating to anything. You create your account, you save your backup file, which is an encrypted file that you can then save on the cloud if you want to, because it's encrypted. It's not a problem. And you get access to your own account that you've created. Once you've done that, you will have multiple wallets inside of the UI. You open the UI, you log into your account that you've just created. The login process and account creation process are very straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Literally just read what it says on the screen, and it makes total sense. Like, we wanted to make this as simple as possible for people to use, because, you know, that's a huge key component to actually having usability and, you know, getting to people and being able to stay with them if they understand it and they can use it, right? So the UI has a major focus on ease of use. So get your account created. That's all you really needed to do. Once your node is synchronized, which should only take like 30 minutes, since it automatically downloads a Bootstrap now for you, which used to be a manual process, and is no longer manual. And that's so awesome, so much easier. That's why I'm harping on that so much. But it'll get you synchronized in no time. You create your accounts in the UI, then you have multiple wallets in there: Bitcoin, Litecoin, Qrt, Dogecoin, right? You will buy Litecoin on whichever exchange you use to buy Litecoin, right? Like, there's multiple different places that you can do that. Any one of those is fine. Once you have the Litecoin, and make sure it's not some wrapped Litecoin on some other chain, this DeFi nonsense is confusing the hell out of everyone. Literally just purchase Litecoin. Once you have Litecoin, you send it from the centralized service to your wallet in Qortal. So you have multiple wallets in there again: Bitcoin, Litecoin, Qrt, Dogecoin. So Qrt is the Qrt wallet, Litecoin is the Litecoin wallet that's inside of Qortal. It does not mean that it's only a Qortal Litecoin thing. It's literally a regular Litecoin wallet that just allows the functionality for the trades and stuff to take place on the back end. So all we're doing is providing a wallet for Litecoin that's inside of the UI, and that uses the same seed phrase that you created for your account to actually create the account for that, so it stays together, right? So if you take that backup file, all of your wallet's addresses and stuff are going to be the exact same ones if you load it on another computer or whatever. So we, again, for simplicity, right? So it's just a Litecoin wallet that's inside of there. Send the coins to that Litecoin wallet. Once you have them and the balance shows up, you can click on the trade portal and it will bring up the market. There's a list of sells that people are trying to sell Qrt for Litecoin. You literally find one that you want, and our market works a little differently, where there's no way for someone to block an order from another order. So there's no way to put up what's called a wall on traditional markets.
For sure.
You can purchase literally any order that's up. So it's more like a bulletin board with a bunch of orders up there, and we just arrange them from lowest price to highest price, and you guys can just choose and pick which one you want to buy. Right?
And hint, I usually buy the cheapest one.
Yeah, and also, that's definitely a thing. And also, there, just for information for the people directly, there is something called the Dev Fund, and this is basically the only way that the developers get extra coin to be able to develop with, is by donation to the Dev Fund, by myself or by multiple other mentors donating to this fund. So the sell orders that were from that fund, from the donated Qrt, I put 333 in them. Usually there's a bunch of threes in them, and you can read the beginning of the account and see that it's actually the Dev Fund. We can get more into that, but a purchase from the Dev Fund directly supports the current development team, right? So most of these other orders
makes it really good, because that's a lot of the ones that I usually buy. I didn't know that. So no,
the 333 orders, those are from the Dev Fund. So those orders are great to purchase, because that's really benefiting directly the people who are committing code to the repo and making this development happen. So, but that's it. You literally click an order, you click buy. The rest of the process we've automated for you with what's called a trade bot that runs on your computer again, that you control. And all it does is execute the multiple transactions that are required to make a real cross-chain trade take place. There are other trade platforms that do this, but there are not very many that actually do it in a real cross-chain trade type of way. Most of them are convoluted with wrapped tokens and other nonsense that you have to figure out and worry about. And then that chain then controls the other coins. And if that chain has any, it's just like, let's not make it more convoluted than it needs to be. We're doing a real cross-chain trade All of the process is automated for you. Once you click that order and you click buy, if you have the balance in Litecoin, the order will execute. Yes, it takes about 7 minutes because you're actually trading from one blockchain to another. And you need a few confirmations on the Litecoin chain to actually make these transactions go through. But it takes about 7 minutes on average, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more, and the trade's done. Then you have Qrt, and the person who is selling the Qrt then has Litecoin. It's a very straightforward process. So we've tried to make the trading as easy as possible too. We've arranged it to make it look similar to a centralized exchange, the way that the orders look. We don't have all the fancy charts yet. We will have that soon too. But yeah, it's a simple process. You find the order you want, you click it, you click buy, and the trade takes place. And this is another thing that you can see with custom technology that we have built that allows these trades. This platform alone could be a multi-billion-dollar platform. The valuation of just the trade portal with the functionality that it has, eliminating all risk in trading.
Totally.
Because the risk is all involved in letting go of control of your coins to the exchange. That's why they have a bunch of policies that you have to read, and they have to know who you are because they're the ones actually managing the money. If you are trading directly from one blockchain to another, from one person to another, there's nothing to regulate there. Right. So it's a massive platform, just that one plugin. So,
and if all that, it's actually a lot simpler than what you explained. No offense.
Yeah, it is. It is.
No, but because you explained it, super accurately. I mean, super in depth. But the beautiful thing is that there are both Telegram, which is probably the main one that I would say I think most people, like lay people, if you will, would probably be using. And then there's Discord, and there are super helpful people in there. I mean, you're in there a lot, obviously too, and just helping walk people through. And there are videos, right? I know you said they need to be updated slightly, but they would still they would still work. Right, for the functionality of it. But so there are people that can this is idiot proof, and
there are so many people. Excuse me. There are so many people in the community now who, when they came in, they were like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. And now those same people are helping other people who are coming in and having issues and walking them through it. So it's great to see that involvement in the community. And yeah, it's really, really not as difficult as sometimes I make it seem by trying to explain how everything works. But I think people kind of like that as well. They like to hear,
it's legit.
I know what I'm talking about. And it's not just nonsense,
That's
right? Like, yeah, it's very, on the base level, all of this is quite complex, and I can go into all of that, but it's going to confuse everyone. So it's easier for me to just say, straightforward, what's going on, right?
No, that's good. I'll make sure to link the Telegram, to this here, the Telegram.
And Qortal.org has the links for everything too. So
I posted that. So one question that's on here, and I think it's a fair question. So she's asking about how to ensure that illegal stuff isn't going on, like, for example, human trafficking. And I'll kind of give my quick answer to that. And then if you have anything maybe to add to that. So
that's always one of the main questions that
the way I look at it is that evil people are going to find a way no matter what, whether it's sending home, carrier pigeons, Wayfair boxes. I don't know, I don't know if you heard about that whole thing. Right. Or, like using code or whatever. So, I mean, I kind of look at it as like that. Qortal does not have to exist in order for people to utilize, to do with illicit and illegal things. So I think that
most of the illegal stuff is done with USD. Most of the illegal stuff, is done out in the open anyway.
Right. Yeah. And that's how I look at it too. I mean, I was like evil people are always going to find a way to do whatever, it is that they want to do. And obviously they've been getting away with it, which is why corruption still happens. So, but do you have like a kind of take on that?
Yeah. So the way I like to
question, but I think it's a fair question though.
It is. I mean, and we always get asked this question. So the way I like to explain it is that, for one, Qortal is not a company, and it's definitely not a hosting company. So we are not in control of anything that anyone is doing. And another thing, if they're doing something illegal, and that illegal thing is going to be on their node only at first, when they first load that data, then the only people who will have access to that data are the people who deliberately accessed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's going to be on them, right?
Right.
It's individual. So if they're doing something illegal and they, start all this and do this, they're going to be the ones who are in trouble for it, not Qortal, because Qortal has no control over any of that anyway. Well, it's all individually controlled. And yes, illegal things are going to happen. We can't do anything about that.
You can't have decentralization, zero censorship, and complete freedom, but yet still
and
monitor.
Also sanctions.
Correct. Right. Yeah. So it's one of those things where
mandates and sanctions. No.
Exactly. So I think that's good. So, well, awesome. Do you have any just kind of parting? I almost said farting words, but do you have any parting words for just about where you see this going, or just any kind of last
I mean, what I always like to say is that in the future, it will be laughed at what's going on now in so many different ways, right? Yeah. Like Qortal will be so big that everyone will be using it, whether they even realize it or not. That's what I think in all reality, that it will get to the point where it's just utilized because it's the best. Right. And if you're not hosting your website utilizing Qortal, people will just be like, why? It's insecure. Why are you not hosting it on Qortal? Because it makes so much more sense to host it on an unhackable, decentralized network that's completely distributed. You never have to worry about managing a server or any of that nonsense. It's all handled for you and it's completely unhackable. Right. People will just be like, there's no point in hosting a website anywhere else. Same thing with sending money and all of these things, right? Like, it's so much easier once you actually grasp these concepts. It's so much easier to just do everything yourself, as opposed to relying on other entities to do it for you. So I think that Qortal is going to be a massive platform. How it gets there is really important to me, though. So that's why I do these little types of interviews. Yes, I talk really quickly sometimes and confuse people more often than not in most cases, but I'm there in the chat as well. If you guys have more questions or multiple other questions that relate to the same thing or whatever, I will be happy to answer them for you, or someone else in the community can answer them for you too, because I've gone over these things so many times with different people. But ultimately, just get into the community. That's what you need to do first.
I'll speak to that because you were literally helping me with something on Easter Sunday, and why we were both trying to get problem solved on Easter Sunday is probably our issue. But I mean, it just feel like this really is a 24/7. Really, I'm sure with European and people, so it's kind of like that whole Gandhi quote, right? It's like first they ignore you, right? Then they laugh at you, then they fight, right? So it's like it's awesome. So cool, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for your time. And, I think this is great. I learned a lot too, because I kind of was just sort of the kindergarten level of really understanding what this is. And my mind is already spinning about, holy crap, podcasting, podcasting, we call it courtcasting.
No way to be deplatformed. Right. And the first thing we're doing is a GitHub replacement. So we won't have to rely on GitHub for our centralized code repo anymore either. Yeah. So we will be completely independent from anything else, and that in itself is amazing, right?
For the record, I claim that trademark of courtcasting. So this is
go register recorded. The name, and then you own it. If you register the name, you own it.
We'll put it on the blockchain.
Exactly. Awesome, there's no more arguments over who owns names. It's really simple to prove. If the name is on an account, it was created and it is owned by that person until they decide to sell it.
No need to file a patent. We just put it on the Qortal blockchain. So
absolutely
awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks again so much for your time. For anybody that has questions, you can reach out to me and I'll do my very best. But ultimately, I'll probably just point you in the direction of Qortal.org and get you on the Telegram chat, because that's where the pros really are at about helping walk you through getting started in your Qortal journey, investment, or hopefully really both. And I can't wait to see where this all goes. And I believe it's going to happen very, very, very quickly. And we just the time is definitely now. Like the conditions are perfect to see this this baby, if you will, get released into the world, and for all that. So awesome, man. Well, have a great night. All right, good talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.